After a glittering career that saw him set up the movie site IndieWire and run New York Film Festival, Eugene Hernandez is at the helm of American indie cinema's most important institution, Sundance. In a movie landscape of tech takeovers and writer strikes, the job running both the festival and the institute at Robert Redford's empire has never been more important. Eugene Hernandez, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So look, last year you left New York Film Festival to take what I assume is your complete dream job as the film director of the Sundance Institute. I wonder, with looking back at your history with Sundance, can you kind of pinpoint a viewing experience you had that was particularly meaningful or memorable for you?
Well, thank you for having me here. Yes, you're absolutely right. First of all, to be able to go work at Sundance after nearly 30 years attending this festival and to now be offered this opportunity and invited to lead the festival and to lead public programming at the Institute is, it's beyond a dream. It's just incredible. I think a lot about my first festival. It was 1993, very long time ago. And I think why it was so special, and I'll talk in a second about a moment at that festival. But I think why it's so special is because the Sundance Festival was a place in the late 80s and 90s that I was hearing about. Mm-hmm. It was this name attached to films that were resonating with me. I was at UCLA, I was in college. And when I saw, a film by Todd Haynes, Poison, or when I saw Jenny Livingston's Paris is Burning, or when I saw Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs, these were all films that resonated with me. And these were all films that came from this place called Sundance. I really did not know what a film festival was in the late 80s, early 90s in college. However, I was doing a sort of version of what I've done throughout my career at that early stage of my life. I was curating and programming and organizing film screenings and concerts and lectures while I was at UCLA. And after UCLA, I was working in television at ABC Television, which is a television network in the States, and just like an entry-level job. And one of my best friends from college, I reached out to him and I said, why don't we just go see what this is all about, Sundance? So,
man, it's cool being young, isn't it?
I know. And I didn't know what I didn't know. So it was just, let's just go figure it out. And Sundance was very easy to access at that point. I didn't know that it was, but I don't even remember how certainly websites didn't exist yet. So I don't even remember how I think there might've been like an ad or a postcard in a magazine or something. So you had to like write off to get your ticket package. And one of the first films I saw at the festival that really made an imprint on me was Robert Rodriguez's film El Mariachi. His first film was playing at the festival, super low budget. Yeah. He had a great story about how he like donated blood platelets to like finance the film. And it was one of the first films I saw at the festival. And while I was at the festival, I got to meet him. And,
he must have been about your age.
About my age. Yeah. Coming to the festival. There weren't a lot of Latino folks at the festival that year. So actually, someone who was a fan of the film actually thought I was him at one point and asked me to sign his autograph, and I couldn't let them down, so I signed it.
Well, that's good of you.
So I told Robert that story, and we just kind of bonded, and it was this notion of like, being in your 20s, going to a festival, connecting with film, connecting with the artist behind the film. It was just like this kind of transformation for me. And it's actually something that I see here in Locarno, where you have such a great such a great energy from all of the young audiences, through the Academy programs, the Critics Academy, the Artist Academy, Industry Academy, and other programs here in Locarno. So it's just something about some of those early experiences, especially at festivals, that really make an imprint. And I think that was one of the ones that just kind of stands out immediately. And I was
just a great movie.
Great movie, great story. And I was just hooked. I was hooked on the experience. I was hooked on independent film. I'd already been kind of exploring independent film at UCLA, but now I had like a lens through which to look at it, to understand it. And Sundance was like my gateway really into to a better understanding of American independent cinema. And I've gone shy of 1 year. I've been there every year since.
So you're kind of programming your first Sundance for 2024.
Yeah.
I'm interested. Do you start with an internal kind of mission or theme or some kind of, coherent thought about how to do it? Or you just dive in and go, right, what's good movies?
It certainly is about good movies and the movies that move you as a programmer. And we're a programming team. I'll talk about that in a second. But at Sundance, it really starts from the founding principles of Robert Redford. Robert Redford started the Sundance Institute in the 80s as kind of an alternative space to the world he inhabited very successfully in Hollywood. But he was finding that there were artists, filmmakers, writers, actors who had stories they wanted to tell, but that Hollywood wasn't the place that was inviting them to tell these stories. So they had to figure out how to make this work independently outside the system of Hollywood. And he created, before the festival, an institute, a place with these Sundance labs that would invest in and nurture and support young artists often at a very early stage of their career, or with films that just didn't fit in the Hollywood systems or were outside of that system. And he created these labs, these retreats in the mountains near where he lives, where he has a house and where he lived and where he would ski at the Sundance, what became the Sundance Resort. Mm-hmm. And they built, if you've ever been or ever have a chance to go there, they built these structures on the resort to really support these lab programs that take place every summer and in the winter. And so it's really when we start this process of putting together the festival, it's really, for me, grounding myself and the team in the ethos and the ideas and thinking that went into creating the place in the very first place. So it's about centering the artist, placing the artist at the center of the work, and going in open to the stories and the diversity and the range of ideas that are coming from independent artists, whether in the US or around the world. And so it starts from there. It's really going in curious, going in open. I learned something recently from Kim Yutani, who is the director of programming for Sundance. And she leads the team that programs the festival. I'm the festival director, and I sit on that team with her and I lead the festival. And then within the whole festival structure, we have a programming team. And Kim was talking recently. We were just in London at Sundance London, which is a weekend, kind of offshoot in the summer. And Kim was saying that when she watches a film, that the moment she starts to watch it, she imagines the film at the festival and how that film might play at the festival. Now, Sundance gets 15,000 entries, so there isn't space to show every single one of those films. That's features and shorts. But from the beginning, it's how might this film be received and presented at the festival? And then from there, we make tough decisions about which films will be invited. So as we talk today, we're in the beginning of August. The festival's still a few months away, but we've already begun watching films, discussing films, inviting films. And so for me, as I adjust to the curatorial process at Sundance, which is A different one from the process I know at Lincoln Center when I was running the New York Film Festival. Those are the things that I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about grounding in the roots of where the festival began when Robert Redford started it, and really walking in open.
As much, obviously, you've got to pay respect to, the principles and ideas and philosophy of Redford when he began it. But I'm interested to know what you think the future looks like for Sundance as well. Like, I'm interested, is growth something that you care about? Do you want Sundance to reach more people, or are you happy to stay the size you are but get better?
Well, I think that the future of Sundance is dependent on the future of independent storytelling. And as we see right now, and again, we're talking in August, there are strikes going on in the US, led by artists, writers, and actors who are fighting for equality and representation in the future of our industry. It's already tough to make an independent film, whether in the US or outside. So when we think about the future, I think it's really, how can we continue to center artists and their needs and goals and dreams in the work that we do? I think it's about being mindful of that in relation to the changing way that audiences continue to watch and engage with independent film. I don't think we use the word bigger. I think we use the word deeper. How can we make decisions in our work with the festival and at the Institute? I also lead public programs at the Institute. So how can we make choices and decisions that will impact artists in an even more deep and supportive way, coming out of whatever this moment of change and this fight that's going on right now?
So, a key part of the arguments within the strikes is fundamentally coming from the creators that they, that their lives, their existences are under-respected by by some of the studios and some of the studio heads. And also, I think built into that and the notion of, one day employing AI to do various jobs and is a sense of transformation from at least that executive perspective, and possibly to a certain degree in the public eye, of cinema into content. And what I would have thought that, what Sundance can be a really key player in is protecting the respect for the art form and, eulogizing for that art form to new audiences as well.
We are absolutely champions for independent voices, freedom of expression, artistic expression. And in the same way that Robert Redford created this institute and festival 40 plus years ago, it'll be the 40th edition of the Sundance Festival, this coming edition in 24. We do think a lot about and talk a lot about the support that artists need. I think the way that we can be the best allies and supporters of artists is by, first just listening to artists, talking to artists. There's this amazing history, legacy, alumni of Sundance that
Tarantino, Coogler, the Daniels, everyone.
There's so many amazing artists that got their start, often at one of our labs, led by my incredibly inspiring colleague, Michelle Satter, who runs these labs. And she's the founding director of the labs. She's being honored with the Jean Hersholt Humanitarian Award by the Academy. She's going to receive an Oscar later this year for her work. So when in doubt, center the artist and their needs and what they're aiming to achieve. So I think a lot about that in in the work that I do now, and I try to think about that through line for myself, going back to the work at Lincoln Center, the partnerships we had with Locarno, bringing academy programs to support artists and women, people of color, queer artists at Lincoln Center at the New York Festival. And then my work when I was at IndieWire, I try to think about that through line to independent artists. And I think that if we can continue to engage and connect with, talk with artists, it will lead us in the right direction at every juncture to be the best institute and ally and supporter to artists that we can.
It strikes me that the kind of the unnerving or downright scary kind of global lurch to the right over the last few decades is not only a threat to the to the beliefs held dear by Sundance, by most people involved in independent cinema, but also to independent cinema itself, as especially across Europe, a lot of artists rely on government funding and stuff. With that, in that prism, do you think that Sundance has, by its nature, become almost a political organization on some level?
I think for us, the way we think about it is a little bit different in the sense that we first and foremost support artists. We first and foremost think about and react to and respond to the needs of artists. So freedom of expression and navigating even just the red tape of trying to make a movie, whether that be the challenges of raising money and distributing a film in the US, or films finding a home at festivals or through funding organizations or through national organizations here in Europe or other parts of the world, all around the world, in the places that we travel every year. So I think for us, it's more about being an organization that can both support and champion artists. I think that means being there at the beginning of their career, artists at an early stage, hoping to get an idea seen, heard, supported at one of our labs or through one of our grants or other programs, and then hopefully through the festival or through other programs that we might have that help those films break through. I think that what we are then is we are hopefully a gateway or a bridge, maybe a bridge for a film or filmmaker to an audience. And I think that supersedes and that can subvert everything else that's happening at any given moment in so many different places in the world. If we can continue to find ways to connect audiences directly with art and artists and stories, that can be truly powerful outside of any other system you might be thinking about.
So what are the ways then that you would connect new audiences with great art? Because the artists of tomorrow are just the audience of today.
Yeah, so totally. We were just last weekend I was in Utah, our home state, and folks think about Utah in the winter. It's, there's been the Winter Olympics there. It's one of the best places to ski. I've been going to Utah for almost 30 winters and I've never skied. I'm from the desert in Southern California, near Palm Springs. So I'm not really a skier, but
it's bad for your knees anyway.
Yeah. At this point, I don't need to take that, deal with that. But we were in Utah for a summer program. And so when you're asking about and thinking about how we engage with audience, we designed a program. Sundance has been presenting programming in Utah, not just the festival, but outside the festival for decades now. Sure. But our team wanted to realign the program, and they came to me. I just started in November, so it's been 8-9 months. Shortly after I started, the team that works with me on the public programming side of the work came to me and said, Sundance was presenting like weekly outdoor film screenings in Salt Lake City and Park City in the summer. So like a movie night once a week. And the team came to me and said, we really think we could do more, have a bigger impact for the artists and the films if we could compress and condense this summer program into like a long weekend. Mm-hmm. So we reimagined the program, and it took place over the last 4 days of the month of July, the last weekend in July. And I was there to participate in the program, to introduce films, to meet audiences. We held a pitch program for local Utah filmmakers and storytellers. And
it's not a bad place to be a local filmmaker, is it, Utah?
I mean, you have these amazing, these vast landscapes and incredible locations. The Utah Film Commission that manages all of that for this incredible state is just about to celebrate their 50th anniversary and 100 years of film in Utah. And so we're there in Utah and showing films. Some were outdoors, some were in Park City and Salt Lake and in other rural areas around the region. And it was a real reminder of how what an incredibly diverse audience there is in Utah. Yeah. Diverse in every possible definition of the word, a very open, inclusive, and curious audience, and also being able to take films to parks, to movie theaters in downtown Salt Lake, to a farm in a rural part of the state. Really was, and to have like thousands of people come out over the course of these 4 days for these screenings was a very grounding reminder of what's possible, because there aren't, just as art house theaters are struggling all over the world and certainly all over the US, theaters are closing. Utah has some really great art house movie theaters, but they aren't spread around the entire state in every community. So Sundance was able to leverage its relationships with Utah and with artists and be that connector to invite audiences to experience a film that they might not have otherwise.
What films did you show?
We showed a selection of films from this year's festival. So we had a documentary called Food and Country that we showed on a farm in rural Utah. Nice. Which was amazing. And it was a really robust program. I mean, it was really nice to have, like, we showed Kokomo City, which was an award-winning film from our next section, just opened on the same night that it was opening in New York City, downtown. We had a screening of the film at the Utah. The Salt Lake Film Society in Utah. So the opportunity to really like connect Utah local audiences with films at the moment that they're also opening in New York City at an art house downtown was really exciting. And it was a kind of highlights program of films from this year's festival with some of the artists traveling. And we actually did it over the same weekend that Sundance Institute's producers lab was happening. So we were able to have producers who were participating in that lab and working as advisors and mentors come and actually have a conversation and participate in a pitch program with local artists as well.
Obviously, the collective cinema theater viewing experience is what we all love. But also I think that I'm interested to know what your approach is to, perhaps taking those films places that it's hard to go physically and basically using the internet for it. Because, I think the general philosophy of collaboration that kind of flows through Sundance is a global message. And a lot of people out there want to hear it and want to also be inspired by those films.
Well, look, we are evangelists for independent storytelling. We are evangelists for freedom of expression. So I think two very interesting ways that Sundance can support and engage films finding an audience at a time when audience habits are changing and new ways of engaging with cinema are continuing to evolve. One is through our virtual festival, which will continue again this year for the third year. About half of our program will be available in on a virtual platform for a very narrow window of time during the festival. And we're adjusting the model slightly to create more space within the physical festival to really give films a chance to take root. We talk a lot about first impressions. How do you give the film the best possible first impression so that audiences, critics, industry, other curators, local audiences can connect with those films and create the buzz, the attention, the noise. And then later in the festival, for a narrow window for just a few days, audiences around the country can tune in and watch about half the program. So that's one thing we think about. And I think also about what we might do long-term outside the festival with opportunities to help films find audiences through new ways that audiences are engaging with film. Separate from that, because we do believe strongly, deeply in the importance of not only gathering in a community and having that experience of watching a movie on a farm or being outside at a place like the Piazza Grande with, thousands of people watching a movie on a giant screen, or in a park in Park City, Utah. We also think a lot about art house theaters and how fragile that network of theaters are, especially in the US. So Sundance is supportive, is a fiscal sponsor and supportive of the Art House Convergence Network and group that's been emerging, and Sundance supported this group I think more than 10, 15 years ago, with space to have meetings at when folks were at Sundance. And now this organization, in my previous life at Lincoln Center, I served on the advisory board as the group was kind of reconstituting itself. And now they've elected a board of directors. Sundance is a fiscal sponsor, and they're incorporating and creating a proper nonprofit organization. So we are supportive of that effort as well. So anything we can do to bring attention to and support the efforts of independent theaters that are doing the work in their communities already on the ground, through education programs, through weekly screenings, through opportunities to gather. When we talk about how we can best support artists, I think that's a role that we can have in just helping to shine a light and also be supportive of so many of these mom and pop, often not nonprofit art house theaters that are all over the country, but are still facing tough times.
Well, look, thank you so much for your time. Good luck with Sundance 2024. You've been waiting your whole life to do it. I'm sure you'll smash it.
I hope to see you there.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks.